Thank you very much, Keywan, and thank you everyone for joining this session. So what I would like to talk about today, it's more like a review or a perspective type of a presentation on how to incorporate elements from societal transformation in models. And this is an output of, as you can see, multiple core authors that come both from the IAMC community, so integrated assessment modelers, but also from social sciences. And our starting point was, of course, the very, very broad aim of how we can bring the two research communities of social sciences, or more the modeling community, together. And in particular, we a little bit narrowed it down to look at one specific type of social science community, which are the sustainability transition scholars. So this is a community that has grown very, very fast and became quickly very large. And they are mostly working on kind of how new niche innovations, can it be renewable energy and so on, scales up, how innovation diffuses, but they mostly work, as you can see here, with qualitative and more conceptual types of approaches, which makes it, of course, quite challenging to integrate with models. So as a starting point, we did a review of existing literature that has been published from the kind of joint work of the two communities to identify these kind of most common strategies of collaboration. So one of the strategy that is called a bridging strategy that has been applied in some of the projects like Pathways, for example, shows that so modelers, but as well the researchers in social sciences, they basically stay during time in their realm of expertise and once in a while build bridges and exchange the types of knowledge. Now, a more extensive, so higher degree of integration strategy to collaborate is something that could be called iterating strategy, what we very often know as story assimilation. So, for example, how some of the outputs from social sciences feed into storylines that are used to define model input assumptions. And that can feed both back, kind of leave a track in models, but also can feed back to research in social sciences. And finally, the most extensive degree of integration can be achieved through the merging strategy, where one would aim to combine the insights from models and research of social sciences to achieve more structurally modified or new, or even build new models. And what was especially thought-provoking was that we conducted a systematic review of 35 publications that have been published in the field of linking transitions theory and integrated assessment, but also energy systems models. And when we looked at the introductions objectives of what these kind of analysis aimed to achieve, we realized that more than half of them wanted to find, let's say, identify solutions for mitigating climate change in a broad sense. Some more of them wanted also to improve realism of both models, most of all, but sometimes also of the social science theories. And then many of these papers aim to initiate learning between the different disciplines. But then when we looked at the conclusions or findings of what has been reported as achievements of these different kind of integrative studies, we could see that, so if we start here, that many of the teams concluded with learning between the two disciplines, so let's say models and transition theories. To some extent, there was some reporting of improvement of the realism of models, but actually there was quite little of quite few studies that reported kind of concrete findings on solutions and policies and so on for climate change mitigation. And if we looked at these strategies behind these these aims, we realized that for learning, it's the bridging strategy that is more common, where the communities exchange and shake their hands and say we learned from each other. But actually, for more this solutions types of approach, which we definitely very much need today for climate mitigation challenges, it's really the merging strategy that would be valuable, and at the same time, it's relatively rare. So then in this perspective, with the co-authors that I showed you before, what we did, we defined three, so we kind of said, that ideally one would want to now also advance the merging strategy, because that has been the less common strategy so far in the integration of models and insights from social sciences. And here are the three broad steps that could be followed to a little bit structure these future experiments to advance the merging strategy. So the first one is that we should all start with mapping assumptions in existing models, because it's clear from the modeling community, and here it's taking just one example of behavior and lifestyles in the transport sector, that there are already many elements that are represented that go beyond technical or only kind of cost-driven decision-making in the models. But we sometimes do not have a complete overview of what is already in the model, so we should do more mapping exercises, but also ideally compare it towards against a theory or framework to assess the completeness and to prioritize what needs to be done in the models to to extend them. Now, the next strategy the next step for the merging strategy is more about doing empirical research to identify generalizable, quantifiable patterns. And I really like this example that came from Nico Bauer from PIC, who said that, if we look at the experience curve, that is, extremely common today in all the models. Actually, back in the day, it's really a good example of how a complex and societal concept, which is definitely an experience curve is, got with time through almost the decades of coordinated case studies on the kind of various technologies and country cases and so on, became eventually operationalized into this curve that is now widely used. And of course, what is important here, that some of that empirical research designed to collect data is not quite what, let's say, disciplines of social sciences on their own how they would set up this type of research. So in that sense, here there's a compromise that is needed to to really guide these experiments in a way that are useful for models. And the third step is, of course, either modifying or building new models. So one could, in principle, build, here's just an example of new so-called socio-technical energy transition models that merge techno-economic detail, actor, heterogeneity, and transition pathways. But the big trade-off here is that if individual models can, let's say, look into techno-economic detail in detail, then we merge the different aspects. We end up somewhere in the middle with a more stylized representation. And on the one hand, this is, of course, a plus because it's integrative. But on the other hand, we lose some of that detail that we would ideally like to still have in models. So another approach is, for example, to adapt conventional models that are, so to say, being used already by adding new functions in that. And here it's just one example from our own work is that one can take so cost optimization models and analyze near optimal solutions and that are achieved through kind of deviations from cost optimality due to societal aspects. And in this way, we can still benefit from techno-economic detail out of the model, but at the same time kind of already integrate some of the social aspects. And of course, all these models, because the uncertainties surrounding the societal elements are so high, they definitely need ex-post validation and uncertainty analysis. So that's all that I had for today. And as just to summarize, so we have argued for more focus and more experimentation with the merging strategy as the most extensive kind of strategy for integration, and propose these 3 steps that can be used to to guide the experiments. And then I'm still here if I'm happy to answer questions. But if not, both, so the perspective and the systematic review are also already published. So do look them up and let us know if you have any thoughts or feedback on them.